now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome and welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben.
on Spoiled Rotten. And today we are spoiling Joker Folie À Deux. So,
I'm very
That's
glad
good.
you said that. I was not going to try to do French stuff. I was just going
I
to say
don't think the
Joker
movie
2.
was trying to do that either.
It would have sounded so much worse. They would have been like, oh, these guys can't even say names, and now they're trying to do French? What are they doing here? So
Yeah.
I'm very glad that you, as someone that can speak French, did it for me.
Yeah, boy. So, this is the sequel, obviously, to 2019's Joker. I'm sure a movie that if you listen to our episode, it seems like I'm high on, but I've since come down from there. But what are you gonna do? So it was weird going into this movie, being like, I feel like Todd Phillips is gonna do more of the stuff I didn't like in the first movie. And I feel like the best way to put my feelings is just, it seems like he just didn't want to make this movie.
It feels like that.
Especially the ending. And I just, and I was like, okay, good. I was like, okay, good. We're done with this. And I don't mean done with the runtime of the movie. It really was like, yeah, I felt like this is what you were getting to the whole time. Yeah, I think I had so many jokes going into it, but I just do not have the energy for the jokes about this movie. How did you feel?
I'm very conflicted. I think I'm gonna know how I feel about this by the end of our discussions because there was a lot about this movie that I'm like, okay, this could be interesting, but they didn't commit to it.
Nothing is committed to in this movie.
Yes, very, very much so. It seemed like they had an idea for the musical thing. I want to start there, which I, on the record, love musicals. I think it's great when you can tell a story through song and dance. I don't think they executed that well.
No.
In this movie whatsoever.
I mean, I don't know. Someone wanted to do a musical, but the way it translates was like, I guess we just have to do this.
That's what it feels like.
Which is weird, because I remember when I first heard rumors like, oh, Lady Gaga's going to be Harley and it's a musical. I'm like, oh, like that would be cool if it was like her version of how she met the Joker through song. Like that would be interesting, but that's not the movie. It also doesn't feel like the movie is interested in using Lady Gaga as a musical genius. Like a lot of her songs is her just like rough draft singing. There's one scene, I feel like, to give the movie credit, there are scenes where it's very clear that everything's operating the way it needs to. I feel like when they sing like gonna build a mountain out of a hill, I feel like that's them being like, okay, this is how we use Lady Gaga, and I understand why you would want to build up to something like that. It's just in a movie where I don't feel like anything is truly ever really built up to. It's just luck if things feel like they were seeded or planted anywhere. I think him... Sorry, before we get into that, I guess we should just say up front, the movie is the trial of Arthur Fleck after the events of the first movie. So you're watching him deal with people thinking he's cool and famous, and the public trying him for the 5 known murders. He had to remind me that he killed his mom. I was like, oh, right. Yeah. He's like, no, it's actually 6. I was like, is he joking? And then he's like, no, I guess he did kill his mom. So yeah, that's the movie. And I think I've read people say they don't like that it just turns into a courtroom drama, but I was like, this is the only time I think they're cooking is when like when he has to examine Gary Puddles. Is his name Gary? I don't remember.
Puddles. I can't remember. I just call him Mr. Puddles.
Mr. Puddles.
Because the
person who he saves in the first movie.
Yeah.
He saves him in the first movie by killing the bully. That's who he crosses. Well, I don't know if there's a cross-examination. You just see him put him on the stand.
Yep.
All of that is good stuff to me.
That's probably the strongest scene in the movie, I think.
That is the strongest scene. But as you mentioned, nothing truly feels committed to. So like they
Hmm.
don't really commit to what I thought they were going to do, which is like his lawyer, played by Catherine Keener, is kind of like, well, we just have to show that you are different from Joker.
Hmm.
Arthur Fleck is not Joker. And it felt like he was doing that when he was cross-examining. He's like, so like you're scared of me now, but you weren't before. And he was getting Mr. Puddles to say out loud, like, you were the only one that was nice to me. Why did you do this? And I was like, yeah, so you're clearly showing a
Hmm.
distinction between Arthur, who people perceived Arthur to be, and Joker.
Hmm.
But then the movie's kind of like, nah, don't worry about it. We.
Yeah.
It really does feel like Todd Phillips was like, I hate that I even made the first movie. It's like he's just like, I just want to be done with this.
Hmm. Hmm. And he gets to do it in a way where it's like, yeah, we're not gonna come back here again, but maybe we will because there's a
I
little
just mean,
bit of a
well,
thing
just
that's like,
spoiler alert: Arthur Fleck dies at the end. He gets
yeah,
stabbed to death by a character who, the first time I saw them, I'm like, oh, he's gonna kill Joker, or
yeah.
they're probably. If it was any other director writer, I would be like, oh, they're gonna plant that he's the real Joker and that Arthur
Hmm.
Fleck just inspired him. But I'm like, I don't even think that's. I don't think Todd cares about that. I think he was just like, I'm done. This is
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like, just kill this guy. We're done here.
It very much reeked of like, all right, let's just put together a competent movie because it is a competent movie. However, it just doesn't want to commit
I
to
don't think it's
anything.
competent. I think it looks really good. I think that is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
I think you're right about that.
How often I would look at the screen and be like, this looks really cool.
Hmm.
I
They have
think
some
it
great
looks great.
shots.
Yeah.
They have some great like they choose great locations, all that kind of stuff. And that's why I feel like it's competent at least compared to some of the other movies that we've reviewed this year, but it's not a I I'm still conflicted about it because like there's things where I really enjoy, and I'm like, why didn't you commit here? Why didn't you
Hmm.
commit here? There's points where I'm like, okay, I understand why you're not fully committing to the musical numbers until Lady Gaga gets there. But then when Lady Gaga gets there, you're like, well, you're still not committing to it
Hmm.
fully.
It's just
What?
too long before you get to that build a mountain scene where I'm just
Yes.
like, yeah. And I also don't really feel like I needed anything before the courtroom. Like, I think that's another. As soon as the movie starts with a cartoon, I was like, oh, they don't have enough. They don't have enough ideas. That's
Hmm.
how it felt. Like it's just like right away. And I'll be clear. My bias here is I don't think Todd Phillips should be making this type of movie. Like,
I think he agrees with you.
yeah, he made it very clear after the first movie came out that he just wanted to make a movie and they don't make comedies anymore.
Right.
And so, like, for a lot of it, I was like, yeah, I guess he's an edge lord regardless. So I guess this is what happens when an edge lord can't be funny.
Yeah.
But like, I just that's my bias is I don't think that Todd Phillips like approached this in good faith.
Mm.
So I apologize if he comes in and he's like, no, 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 like this is truly what I wanted to have happen, and this is how I saw things going. Then I'll apologize. Like, whatever. Who cares what I think? But
Mhm.
like, I will admit that I was wrong. But it just feels like from interviews he's given and the two movies on display, he doesn't actually care about this shit.
Mhm.
So like, and I and sure the comic book stuff, but even in so much as he won't like, it's very clearly in love with Martin Scorsese so much that the judge looks like Martin Scorsese in the
Mhm.
first, like both movies are very Martin Scorsese coded. I think the first one is a lot easier for people to grasp onto Taxi Driver and King
Mhm.
of Comedy, especially since Robert De Niro is in it. But like
Yep.
it's still like, what is this, like New York style, like visuals, and like there's that umbrella sequence where I was like, what? Like this isn't even a musical, so why are we shifting in and out here? Like where it's black umbrellas, but then they become colored.
Mhm.
I just, yeah, it's just starting with that cartoon. I was like, oh, he doesn't have enough. Like he's filling time right now. So
So,
like, it starts with that My Shadow and Me cartoon.
mhm.
Then we're doing like the jail stuff, but I feel like we can both agree the juice is in the actual trial and the actual like deconstruction of Joker versus Arthur Fleck, which you're not really getting until you get to the courtroom.
I agree because the stuff in the jail, I'm just like, okay, there's a lot more compassion being shown here by the guard than I would have originally thought.
What? No, there isn't.
It- in
No, they're
terms,
terrible.
they're punish him terribly, but the idea of like, okay, well, I got you into this singing thing, I got you into here, and all this kind
He's
of stuff. I'm
doing
like,
it to mock him.
I
He's
get, I
trying to
get it.
let. There's no compassion there.
I disagree. I read it very, very differently. I'm like, okay,
But what about
I
every
don't think
other
it's
action that he
genuine.
does would coincide
So,
with him being compassionate?
so I don't think it's genuine. I think it was like the other guard said. It's like, oh, it's because you get to take him to the other area and you don't have to be here with everyone else. I think that's 100% true. And he's got that scene there where like they get to sing at the same time. I'm like, oh, he likes to sing as well. So this is makes sense to me.
Yeah. And
And
what
I'm
does he do
like,
as soon as they get home and Arthur pretends like they're at all friendly?
he just pushes him around and like
No, he
abuses
smacks
him
him upside the
physically.
head and then
Yeah,
pushes him around. So like
yeah,
at no point is there compassion there. This is purely
fair,
him being like, you are my little plaything. And
fair.
the 0 to 100 he does when Arthur says those fat stupid guards in the thing,
Mhm.
there's no way there was ever compassion there
Okay,
for
fair
him to
enough.
feel like that was like the police stuff. They're like, oh my goodness, you don't respect my authority. Fuck
Yeah,
you.
yeah, and yeah. Okay, fair. That's because I was just like, is this genuine? Isn't this? And that's why I'm like, I don't know how to feel about this movie. I need to talk through it,
Yeah.
because everything I've heard is very much like, I hate this movie. This is terrible and all that. I'm like, well, I get why they would hate it, but I'm also looking for
Yeah.
reasons to like it aside from the aesthetic and
I think
all
it
that kind of
looks
stuff.
really good, and I do think that anytime they in earnest try to deconstruct the what Joker
Mhm.
is, it is good. But I
Mhm.
don't think that those were things they really sorry. Obviously they want it to look good.
Yes.
It worked.
Mhm.
The score is great again. All of that stuff is good. It's
Mhm.
just the actual substance of the movie where you're like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like you're interested in this.
Mhm.
And I think that I'm not saying people can't like it. Like I'm not one of those people who are like I don't like it, so it would be silly to like this movie. But I
Mhm.
do think that it is important to realize that like the jail stuff is so one note because you know that those guards there is no other dimension to those guards other than you're my plaything. Don't
Sure.
step out of line.
Mhm.
Uh, so I was just kind of like, especially like that scene where they beat him after. I'm like, so does the movie want me to not think that he's mentally ill? Like, because that's the first movie is where like he is truly mentally ill. So
Yeah.
then why would I want to revisit him being beat up in this? Like, it just I was like, I don't really. It is what I didn't like about the first movie, where I was just like, I don't know, like I just don't want to see him in dangerous situations. He already has enough going on in his life.
Mhm.
Like I don't find it enthralling to watch him get beat up or try to outrun the cops because even Todd Phillips said before this movie, he's not a criminal mastermind. He's not masterminding anything.
Mhm.
So it is just a troubled person that's not being helped or in a very dangerous situation for themselves.
Yeah. The thing that bothers me about this is because like in the first one, they make a very, very good point of this is how mental health is treated in society.
Mm-hmm.
You made the point.
Yeah.
Second one, you're doing it again. And it's just like, that to me doesn't feel great because I'm like, you've did it before,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it again, and you're showing this guy, Arthur, being compliant with air quotes in the sense where he's taking his medications, he's doing all that kind of stuff until he finds a spark for life again.
Yeah.
Even then, to your point, the guards are not treating him with like or him or any of the other
Yeah.
prisoners
They
with any
certainly
kind of
don't like
respect.
anyone there, but he
Yeah.
has the benefit of being famous, so they
Mhm.
can't do what they do to the other people.
Right.
He's also I don't even think they think he's funny, obviously, because when he actually tells a joke
They're laughing
in
at him.
earnest,
Yeah.
no, I mean the one where he's like, "Why are you trying to be funny now?" Like he gets forced into telling jokes and they laugh at him.
Mhm.
You're right,
Yes.
but I feel like there's a scene where he genuinely tries to tell a joke and they're like, at least the Brendan Gleeson character is like, "Fuck you, stop making
Mhm.
jokes." The one guard laughs, I
Yeah.
Gleeson, who I think you're talking about, is the more
Yeah.
compassionate guard, was like, "I don't actually want you to tell jokes to me. This is
Mhm.
me playing with you,
It was me
and I
controlling
don't
you.
need
Yeah.
you to feel like you have any agency here or that we're actually anywhere close to being equals."
Right. Right. Fair enough. Yeah, because you're right that when after he takes Arthur to the first like singing thing and he puts his hand on his back like thanks buddy, just beats him around and all
Like,
that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
like it is a very so quick reaction that it didn't feel like
You're right.
he
Yeah.
was caught off guard. That was him being like, I'm this is you are 1 second away from this every time.
Like no matter what you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do agree that the courtroom stuff is the most interesting. Like let's understand the psyche, and you see where a lot of these people are just being like, "Hey, let's project our own stuff onto him.
Mm-hmm.
What is he?" And when he actually is like, "Hey, I'm firing my own lawyer. I'm taking the stand," it seems like he doesn't even know who he is, which tracks. It makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like, it's very clear you know what you want at that one
Yeah,
point.
I don't think the performance tracks in that like I don't like it seems like he knows more than the movie wants him to know somehow.
Hmm. Hmm.
It- like I said, like when he's doing the puddle thing, it's like, oh, like he knows what he's doing. But I felt like the movie wanted me to be like, oh fuck, he's screwing things up by firing his
Hmm.
lawyer. I don't know why I said it so poorly. Like it just feels like he even says at one point like, yeah, I was gonna come and rant as Joker, but I can't do it anymore. Like it feels like he's very much uh aware of the power of the Joker and what he can do with it,
Hmm.
which goes against what the lawyer was trying to do, but it just feels like the movie drops it as a something to explore.
Hmm.
The movie's just kind of like, yeah, whatever, man, he's dead. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
which leads me to the well, before I even get to Lee,
Hmm.
I I don't remember the first movie, and I've only seen it twice, so maybe this is very clear and I just forgot. Did they make it clear that his mom was sexually abusing him?
I don't think
I
so.
thought it was like, yeah, there was physical abuse, but it felt like they were saying that was the boyfriends doing that.
Yeah.
But then they, it feels like it was just pure, like, I'm not saying she was a good mother anyway for putting him in those situations, but it just felt like they were just like, no, the mother was a terrible person because she would active. It wasn't just her lack of action. She was actively sexually abusing him. She would
Hmm.
make fun of him behind his back, and I'm like, was that the case? Like, what are we doing here? Why is
And,
this coming up now?
and that's why I think like I go back to the lawyer the psychiatrist I want to say that uh Harvey Dent
Steve
had on
Coogan.
stage. Yeah. Um
Oh no. Oh, okay. So the Ken Lung character.
yeah, the Ken Lim character. I feel like the only thing that I'm like, what is reality? What's not? What's his from Joker's narrative and all that kind of stuff. The only thing that I interpreted as reality was that scene was just like, what's his psychoanalysis of this? And then when he was getting cross-examined by the other, his original lawyer, I forget what her name is, but I was like, yeah, okay, that's a good cross-examination. But his testimony to what his issues are psychologically was to me the most telling thing about it. It's like, yeah, he's narcissistic grandeurs and delusions, all this kind of stuff, but none of it is actually Joker, which is kind of what Joker ends up doing at the end of it too. It's like, well, I'm not actually this. Like, it's so unusual to me. That was the only thing I really clued in on to be like, okay, this part might be real.
But I guess my thing is that's all well and good, but he didn't do his job. So it just felt
Hmm.
like, sure, you can say that, but it's a surface level reading,
Hmm.
which Catherine Keener, as the lawyer, points out. It's like, you didn't even spend 2 hours with him.
Hmm.
You are basing that you did that and then just read a bunch of stuff from the same organization that sent him back to his abuser.
Hmm.
So he might be right, but the movie then undercuts that by being like, but he didn't actually do the work to sort that out for himself.
Yes.
And so it's like, oh, so then what's the point
Yeah.
if we're not going to commit to one side or the other?
True. True.
I think yeah, also the Harvey Dent thing. I was like, well, surely they're gonna blow off half his face, but no, they didn't. It doesn't matter. Like
I was bothered by that. I'm like, okay, they're
by the
visually
end of
going
the
to
movie,
do
I
the
was like, it
Easter egg.
doesn't matter. He's just
Yeah.
they just said, who cares? Just Harvey Dent was a DA. Great.
Yeah, they're just like, here's the visual reminder of it and all this kind of stuff. And one thing I will say that I hated the fact that this was done in a courtroom in New York. I'm like, why didn't you just commit to this being Gotham? What?
It is Gotham. It just looks like New York.
No, but because they said like this like when the judge was like Harvey Dent who represents the people of New York. I'm
Oh,
like,
right.
why did they just do that? Like why couldn't they just continue to call it Gotham? It makes
Oh, well,
no sense to me.
maybe the show takes place in New York.
Maybe are they saying
Like
that
that's what
Gotham
they're trying
is
him for murders in New York. Then I assume.
yeah, are they saying Gotham is in the state of New York? Like either it just bothered me
I
that they
don't know
couldn't
if
be
it's a
like
city or
Gotham.
state that when they do the verses, but
Right,
I
fair enough.
think doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
really doesn't. But
It's
yeah,
this
you're
minor
right. They
detail. I'm like,
definitely, I do
what?
remember them saying versus the people of New York. It's just I got the sense that it was like he was being tried
Mhm.
for the crimes he committed in New York, but also it doesn't make sense because he's at Arkham, which is in Gotham, and all of the landmarks of Gotham are like either from New York or New Jersey. So it's you're kind of just like it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
This is not someone who cares about that at all.
sure. Fair enough.
No one involved cares.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I can't say that, but none of the decision makers care.
Yeah, yeah, because the actors care. The actors are putting
No,
on
I
a
mean
great
about that
show.
kind of comic continuity.
Oh, I see, I see. Yeah,
I
they
I
really
I
don't.
would never say. I don't think there are bad performances in this. Like I even
Mm.
like warmed up to the Harvey Dent guy because I was like, who's this nobody in a movie filled with at least people I recognize. But I was like, yeah, he's good.
Yeah,
It doesn't
he
really matter, but he's good.
the funny thing is when I first heard his voice, I'm like, I know that voice. Is that Hayden Christensen? Did they get Hayden Christensen for this? And I'm like, no, it's someone that sounds extremely like Hayden
Mm,
Christensen. And I'm like, okay. I got
yeah,
excited there for a minute that he might be like coming back and got over his stuff, but like they got Lottie as
right.
Harvey Dent.
He's
Don't know who
good.
he is, but he's good.
He's
I
good in
like him.
this movie. I don't think anyone's. I was really happy when Zazie Beetz came back.
Yep.
I was like, oh, I didn't see her in the trailers. I'm glad she's back. I yeah, I think our main thing is nothing really feels committed to, and I
Uh-huh.
in general don't think that Todd Phillips and the writer's name, his last name is Silver, had enough content.
Scott
Scott Silver.
Silver. Yeah.
It just feels like they were like, I don't know, let's this happens in this because it's a 2 hour and 18 minute movie,
Yeah.
but it just and I'm never someone who's like it needs to be this amount shorter. It just
Hmm.
needs to use its time more effectively. And I
Hmm.
think that I didn't need the cartoon. I didn't need uh the stuff building up to the court case.
Yeah.
I think if the movie was doing the whole this is all happening in his head again, the Shadow and Me thing works.
Hmm.
But since it's very clear that Lee is a real person, I was just like, I don't think the Shadow thing really works.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know what of the stuff we saw on screen was real from what she did. Like, when she got into the prison, I thought for sure they were going to be like, no, like, that's not real. But they didn't commit to that. And maybe I can just assume it wasn't real, but it just feels like she was saying things that confirmed she was there, even
Hmm.
though the movie is very clearly being like, this isn't in his head. Like, her being alive isn't in his head. People see her, people reference her.
Hmm.
So it's just like, I don't really know what we're doing here. And
Yeah.
for what I would assume would have been the second lead, you don't really know what she actually wants because again,
Yeah.
the lawyer puts in enough doubt for you, but then she's kind of just laughs it off like, no, I just wanted you to like me. Like the whole she says like, oh yeah, I grew up where you grew up. I went up those stairs all the time. You made
Yeah.
me feel and like, or I watched your movie 20 times. It's good. And the lawyer's like, no, she's rich. She lives with her parents. None of the stuff she said is true. And then when she gets confronted, she's like, yeah, but I just wanted you to like me. Everyone lies sometimes. And I'm like, uh, okay, so then what is she in this for? Like, I don't really get what's going on.
So this is the thing that I thought was really, really smart about her character and how well her character was written was that she did do those kind of things. Because again, going back to the Ken uh Leung character, Victor Liu, about his assessment of Arthur, which again, you're right, he points out a lot of the same things that previous people have assessed and all that kind of stuff. But her being a like in psychiatry or psychology or whatever, she would know exactly how to play him, and that's exactly how you would play someone like that
But
character.
it's
But
just I don't
to
know
to
why
the
she was
point of
playing him.
why, yeah,
Yeah.
what's the purpose? What was she going for? If because
If he
I
killed
don't
her parents and
understand.
she was trying to get back at him, like it just felt like
There's
her story
something.
was incomplete. Like
Yeah,
I understand that she played up into everything he needed,
yeah.
but I was like, but for what? Like she just walks away. Like it doesn't make any sense.
I'm very much
So
with
I
you on
don't know
that.
that she's smartly written. I think they had a good idea and then they didn't commit to anything.
Yes, very much that. Like the things that she does is great, but for what purpose? And what you just said, like if she was the daughter of someone that he killed, I'm like, oh, okay, now we got something here because she wants to fuck with him. But like genuinely, I don't know what she wants in this. It's just
Yeah,
like
like the
what
whole like
you
oh
reject him at the end.
yeah, it was just like, but it's not even like a public thing. Like it's just something he has to deal with. I didn't
Mhm.
really understand what she was going for. And
Yep.
in life, you're not always going to understand things, but this is a movie, so it just
Mhm.
feels like there should be a bit more for me to go off of because yes, you're right.
Mhm.
The that Ken Lung character points out things that make sense for Harley to play into. And
Yes.
her dad is a doctor. But it's like all these things are just like okay, but that's she's not a doctor. What is her relationship with her dad? Like you invoked
Mhm.
not you, Ben, but like the
Mhm.
movie, you're invoking this relationship with her parents, but then it's not actually anything that the movie wants to engage in.
Yep.
You have her do things where I'm like, okay, I think I know where we're going with this. Where she's like, yeah, I got a place in your old apartment, and he's like, I don't want to live there, and she's like, you don't have a choice, I'm pregnant. But then it's like, I'm not actually pregnant. I mean, she doesn't explicitly say that, but I think it's clear they never actually had sex, or it's not
I
clear, but you could assume she didn't go into his cell and have sex with him.
See, that's the part that was weird to me. I'm like, what kind of prison is this that this would even happen? And she would be able to, oh, I pulled some strings. I do this. I'm doing. We have to be
She doesn't
quick.
even say that. She
It,
just says, "Yeah, the guard let me in." It's like, what? What?
yeah,
Unless you're saying like, "Oh, she's an Arkham, like someone in her family owns this place and she can do whatever she wants." But again, they don't engage with any of that. It's just
hmm, that would make
there to
sense.
have a sex scene, and then that way you can't out and out be like, "Well, obviously she's not pregnant." It doesn't feel organic. It feels like it's there just because the movie needs you to think that he might have a kid on the way.
Yeah, I and that he needs to think that, so he's gonna be
Yeah.
whatever. And so much of this movie is just like I went into this movie being like, I don't know what's gonna be reality and what's gonna be his delusions and all that kind of stuff. And the movie really successfully played that line for me because I'm like, I don't know if that sex scene was real. None of
Mm-hmm.
it made sense. And the idea of like, okay, um, if he did imagine them having sex in his jail cell, how is she able to play off that? No, like she can't read his mind in
Mm-hmm.
that sense.
Exactly.
So
This is
it's
what
just
I'm
like,
saying. She
what
says
the
things where you're
hell?
like, well, it seems like she knows that he thinks they had sex.
Yeah,
Uh, but I don't know. I
but I can't imagine that to be the case because like it first and foremost, and it's just like, and I get that this is a different time and all that, but like, really, you're just letting these prisoners have cigarettes and like lighters and everything like willy nilly? Like, what's going on here with this prison?
yeah.
What? I don't get it. What are they doing here?
I don't know,
It's
man.
not
I
convincing to
don't
me as a
think
prison whatsoever, to be perfectly honest with you.
that's why me saying the movie looks good it only goes so far, and because it's just like,
Yep,
yeah, these scenes look good, but what are they in service to?
I agree.
Um,
Because you're right to point out the umbrella thing. I'm like, this is dumb. This is really, really dumb. I thought it was like, oh, he feels alive now that he's not in solitary confinement, but he wasn't in solitary confinement the entire time
no.
at all. He was like, no, you're in the maximum ward, but you're very much not in solitary confinement. If the whole thing was like, oh, he's in solitary confinement and and this is the delusions that he created leading up to the court case, I'm like, okay, I would believe that a little bit more, the umbrellas and all that, but none of it actually makes sense to me other than this is a great shot. This is very
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so it sounds like you liked the Lee character more than I did. Is that
I
for me? It was
liked
a
the
letdown.
idea of
Yeah.
her more than what's actually being done because a lot of it's just like, again, what did she want? Did she want him to really be like I am Joker. I'm going to murder myself. I have the death sentence. And then what was she going to do? Because when the bomb went off, the
Like I
car
thought
bomb,
for sure that she did that.
exactly. I was just like, oh, okay, that's why she left the room. She didn't want to be caught in the blast. And I was expecting her to come up through the shadows,
Mm-hmm.
grab him, but no, it was just one of the random
Yeah, like a
Joker
character we don't know.
fanboys.
Yeah, like we
Yeah.
don't.
And I'm like, okay, that is a very unusual move. And I thought, okay, they're in the car right now. Maybe they're bringing him to her. Like she orchestrated
Yeah,
the whole
I
thing.
thought it was gonna
And then
end in
none of
her
that was
being
true.
like more committed to being like, no, I'm gonna bring the Joker out of you, and this is gonna be bad for everyone.
Yeah.
But it just really was her being like, oh, you don't want to be the Joker? Fuck off. And I don't even like the way she played it. I was just like, it still feels like they're trying to make me think she's not real. Like the way he was like, stop singing, and
Yep.
she just kept singing. She was so dead. It's a good performance, but I was just like, so like, what is her deal then? Like this feels way too intricate for me to just believe she was just like, yeah, it's a bummer. You didn't want to be Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Like it felt like something was behind all of this, and they just don't get into it.
I feel this is one of the biggest things is like, okay, are they trying to say something with all the thousands of fans he has and Lee to be like, okay, the person you build up in your mind is never the person that actually is the case, which, okay, successfully, but you didn't need this movie for that at
No,
all.
and
And you could
also
have done that in a different
I don't
way.
know that Arthur's actions actually prove that point.
Mm-hmm. They don't.
I know he says things, but I mean his actions. Like his actions are very much like, yeah, I'm gonna bring the Joker out whenever I need to.
Yep.
So he is who they think he is.
Mm-hmm.
His fans, I would say, he's who his fans want him to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even really get how he has. I guess if you kill someone on live TV, then yeah, you're gonna get people because there's just like a lot of it. I forget that it's like it. This is not purely, but heavily tied to that talk show appearance, and
Yes.
so it's like because I'm like, what exactly is inspiring about this guy? But I'm
Yeah.
thinking through it now. Like obviously, it's just he did this big thing in front of everyone, and he was talking shit while he did it, so people
Yeah.
would like that. But it's just like, yeah, the movie. I read this review before I saw the movie, like way before I saw the movie, and it
Mm-hmm.
was just like, yeah, like the movie hides Joker from you because he's not Joker unless he's in a fantasy. Obviously, that's not true. He's Joker during the trial, but it's like it is this weird thing where I'm like, do you don't want to make this movie, man? Like you call this Joker 2, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just about this guy who's kind of confused about who he is, but not really,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't get to do any. And I don't mean like plot against Batman, but he doesn't even get to do the stuff he does in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it just doesn't feel uh, I guess worthwhile to like venture back into this other than the cash grab.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. There's so many inconsistencies where the things here where it's like she goes like, I need you to stop taking your meds. And he goes like, I already have. And from that point on, he's not taking his meds. But the whole movie shows you the procedures that like, okay, here's how they take their meds. They check even the swallow and
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of. So how is that real? And then the idea of him, the meds, let's say being very effective to suppress his involuntary laugh, he has a control over that afterwards. Like he's able to be like, I'm not on my meds, I'm in my courtroom, and I'm not doing the laughing thing until the very, very end, where he's like, okay, yeah, the sentence is being
Like right
delivered.
before it blows up, yeah.
Exactly, right? And it's just like, okay, that's the only time it really, really happens. But then every other time, it's just like, oh, you're not laughing right now. You're not doing
No,
this. You're
or
doing, yeah.
not the same thing as laughing. Sorry to cut that out, but it just reminded me like how effective I thought it was when he was laughing and the dad was like, "Stop fucking laughing!" But it's like
Yes.
he's not even a real character, and that could have been a very interesting thing, like getting
Mm-hmm.
multiple points of views on him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, there's the Kenlon character who probably is right, but also didn't really do the research to do it. He's probably being encouraged to just say this.
Oh, yeah.
Then there's the parents of the victims. Like you, I feel like Harley should have been attached to this in more than just. I don't know. I was bored and I liked seeing you do your thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
feels underwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
especially since they don't even explore that element of it. That she was just a bored rich girl.
Right.
Like I can infer that, or sorry, yeah, I can infer that, but it's not really something the movie wants to deal with either.
Mm-hmm. It's It's very unusual because the Deborah Kane character, played by Sharon Washington, she's the psychiatrist that was like apparently he killed at the end of the first movie, right? So that I guess didn't actually happen where he's
Yeah,
running
see,
around with the blood.
that was my problem with this movie too. Is it just kind of undid moments from the first movie because I'm like, so this guy isn't a killer. Like that, the way that movie ended was like, oh, he's gonna really let loose in Arkham, but it's like, nah,
Yeah,
he's
it
not a
makes
killer.
it seem like he genuinely did have a psychotic
This
break.
is what I'm saying. The movie does
And
not feel like it has actually made a choice on what the deal is here.
right. And at that point I'm like, I get why Harley would be like, you're not the person I thought you were, but I'm like, what did you want though? What did you want from this? Because if
Yeah,
you wanted
I
him to be
feel
the
like
person, he's going to
he
be
is
found
what she
guilty.
needs him to be. Like
Right.
she very much could control him continuing to be whatever, but then you're like, well, then clearly that's not actually what she wanted. I
Yep.
guess it's the only logical conclusion. But then I'm like, then what the fuck is she doing?
Yeah, what is she doing? That's the biggest thing. It's just what is she doing? I don't understand. It's just aside from being like, okay, this was a very heated, toxic love kind of thing, which was like, great, you successfully did that. What else did you want from this? Where was the end
Yeah.
goal?
It also like the name of the movie. I'll granted, I didn't know what it meant until
Mhm.
the trailer came out. Like I was taught what that was when people were reacting like, oh, people don't know what Folie À Deux is, and I'm like, so I could be wrong here, but I thought it was like a shared psychosis, and I don't feel like he has a shared psychosis with anyone.
No, I don't think that
She's
either.
playing him,
Yeah.
so like, so then what? I mean, I get that it could just be a name only, but it just felt like there was so many interesting ways they could have gone, but to have it just be like, no, she knew what she was doing,
Yeah.
maybe, and even if it was like, even if she was really caught up in this thing, that's not where he was at. Like he was just like, I just want to be around her. So
Yep.
he's not having these ideas of like, we're gonna do this, this, and this. Like he is
Mhm.
just like, I just love this person who likes me, and so yeah, I just feel like at that fundamental level, you didn't even commit to the folie à deux part.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just like, are we saying that the shared psychosis is between him and the thousands of Joker people? Which in cases like, well, that wasn't a spotlight other than like we're told and we're shown in the
And
background and all that kind of
they
stuff.
show he doesn't even feel comfortable around them. Like
Exactly.
once they're actually with him, he's like, no, thank you, gotta get out of here.
Yeah, I get. Well, I mean, I get his motivation to get out of there at that point. It's just like, let's get out of here. Let's go see Harley or
Yeah,
Lee,
yeah.
I should
But
say.
it just
I,
feels like, I mean, I picked up on him just genuinely not being comfortable. He wasn't like,
oh, 100%.
oh, good, hey, can you, like, this is weird. Because they were like, stay with us. Like, we still like you. Don't worry about it. And he was
Yeah,
like, nah, not with it.
yeah.
Uh, I think that was good for his preservation for the time
Hmm.
being, because obviously he doesn't stay out. But it still made me feel like, well, he doesn't want to actually engage with those people.
Yeah, because I'm just like, okay, if he does engage with those people and he starts like this whole crime spree across Gotham, like, okay, now we got something where, you know, he's actually a threat because his ideas infect society. But even then, he's like, no, I just wanna be in love.
Hmm.
I I found it, and I'm like, okay, I guess love in many respects is a shared psychosis, and
But
but
she doesn't
it
love him.
not, yeah, she doesn't love him,
Like,
and
there
that's
is no shared anything. I think you're right.
yeah,
Both of them have issues, but none of it is actually connected, or
yes,
uh unless they're full on saying like, yeah, when he had that uh fantasy about having sex with her, she experienced that too, or
yes,
she's experiencing their like, I mean, obviously they are singing together. Maybe that is it. Maybe it's just that, but again, not
mhm,
great execution. But technically, yes, you're right. If they're singing together, then yeah, I guess that's the shared psychosis.
sure, but even then, it's just like it's not really that
No,
at all.
I don't think it's well done in that sense.
No, it's not at all. Like, and I don't know what I wanted out of this movie, and it's just like, okay, I
See, that was
yeah,
my problem. Is I just was like, I don't think this is a good idea from the time they announced it. But
yeah,
then they got into the courtroom, and I was like, it's too late for this to be the actual meat of the movie. But this would, I got into the movie and found something and discovered something I would have liked from the movie, but I was like,
Mm-hmm.
but it's too late for that to be the case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Todd Phillips, if he wanted to just do the one and done, and the studios forced him into this, it's very, very clear. He's like, I don't want to do this, but I'll take the paycheck kind of deal.
Yeah,
But
maybe
why
he's like, I just want to make a
undo?
movie
Yeah,
on the scale I want to make a movie,
yeah.
but it has to be this.
Why undo the stuff you did in the first film, and why go
It's because
back
I
on a lot
think
of things? I don't get it.
it's what I was saying after our episode about Joker on other podcasts. I
Hmm.
don't. It was like someone described it as if you have no idea what chess is and you're watching someone play chess and they just move a piece and go, "I won." You all you have to do is be like, "Yeah, I guess he did because he said it," and that's the first movie. Is like I don't know what he's trying to do, but he's planting his flag and saying, "This is this is it. I did it." And all I can do as someone who can't fully understand what he's trying to get across is be like, yeah, I guess you did, man.
Yeah.
Like, and that was before the Oscars and stuff. I genuinely was just like, what's good about the first movie is it does wrap you up in what you should be thinking, I assume.
Hmm.
Which is, wow, this is a really smart guy who's put not the characters,
Hmm.
the filmmakers, the storytellers, really smart. Wow, look at the attention to detail. But I think the more you think about it, like I know people who I really respect being like, "Oh, did you notice that the clocks are always saying?" I'm like, that's not like. The more I think about the movie, the more I don't think any of it is on purpose. I
Yeah.
think there's very clear allusions to other movies and visuals, but like down to like them being like, "Oh yeah, he killed that woman at the end."
Hmm.
That was in a movie where you're supposed to be like, and we'll never see him again, but that's how he's going to become the Joker, the crazy killer. And then
Hmm.
this movie has to come back and be like, well, I mean, that's not who he is. So yeah, obviously he didn't kill that woman. Or I
Hmm.
remember, maybe not you, but I was thinking, did he kill Zazie Beetz? Like, there's always there's
I
always
was wondering
sirens
that.
whenever there's a death, and there's
Yeah.
sirens after goes to her place. And then this movie's like, no, of course not. And in fact, she just kind of like commiserated with his mom and made fun of him. And you're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah. Because I thought, like, it, in the sense where I'm like, right, the Zazie B thing, he wanted love in the first one, he didn't get it, and all that kind of stuff. So it makes sense to make this one about love, but then to be like, wait, not only are you actually alive, but you're bullying him at the same time. You're adding to the issue here. What's going on?
I thought it was weird how many people. I don't include Zazie Beetz in this. Actually, says I didn't
Mm-hmm.
actually know him. He built that up in his head.
Right.
But like the Puddles guy,
Mm-hmm.
he rightfully was like, well, I don't want to be in front of you right now because right now you scare me. But like, what seemed to be missing was him emphasizing how much of a safe space he thought he was beforehand. Yes, he says it out loud,
Mm-hmm.
but everything about the interaction is like, no, you scare me. You scare me. I don't want to be here. Everything is done because of this. And I'm like, if the point of the trial and to a bigger extent the movie was, is there actually a difference between Arthur Fleck and the Joker? I think it needs to be cleaner that Puddles sees Arthur as the Joker and not Arthur Fleck, the person he thought was safe.
Yep.
I think that needs to happen, even if that's not how real life works. That's how this movie should work. Is that
Yeah.
you see people who genuinely do think there's a difference between Arthur and the Joker, and then the
Mm-hmm.
people that it's in their best interest to be like, there is no difference. What are we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, that would make it the courtroom drama that I feel it should have been,
Yeah.
given
I
the restraints they put on themselves.
I very, very much agree. It doesn't feel like a genuine sequel. It just feels like an epilogue of the last movie,
Yeah.
featuring
I
Lady
feel like
Gaga.
epilogue is the best way because there's no real forward motion. It's like there's
Yeah.
nowhere for him to go, and then he dies at the end. So it's like,
Yeah. It
yeah,
just
it's definitely an epilogue. It doesn't feel like a continuation of a
it
story.
yeah, it's just like at what point, and I think I love the fact that you're like he is true edge lord. I'm like, yeah, it very, very much is an edge lord because in the sense of like every single thing where it's like, oh, he's gonna get out now, he's gonna do Joker things with her, they're gonna have this crime spree and all this kind of stuff, and probably do a Romeo and Juliet situation where they die together,
Mm-hmm.
or just something like that,
Yeah,
right?
Bonnie and Clyde type
Yeah, a
thing. Yeah,
Bonnie and Clyde is a better description. None of that actually happens, and
no,
you're just
nothing
like, wait,
happens.
what? Why? I don't understand.
I
It's
don't
just
even
like
know who was there to visit him in that shouldn't piss me off because in a better movie I would have just been like, oh, like that's the tragedy. But I was like, it's just another thing he didn't like have to deliver on.
Yeah, I genuinely am confused whether or not someone was there to visit him, or if that was just
This
a
is the
prison setup to be like,
yes,
hey,
a
this
setup to
person
get
go
him out in the
shank
open.
him. Yeah, like to me, I'm more convinced that the prison guards were like, hey, we don't want blood on our hands, but we want this guy dead because of how he shit talked us publicly and all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. So we're just gonna, and like obviously prison shanks are very, very real. Whether or not the prisoner gave him the shank or anything like that, that was a situation where, and again, the consistency with the bad guards in this prison was the idea of like, how did you leave him alone while you're transporting him?
yeah. I guess the way I presented it made it seem like I didn't know that it was a setup or consider
Mhm.
that it was a setup. I do heavily consider it's a setup.
Right.
It's just, as I said, in a better movie, I would have just been like, yeah, that was a setup. In this
Yeah.
movie, I'm like, I don't like what? Like,
Is it just incompetence or is it a
it's
setup?
just like it
Yeah.
just happened. Other than, as I said, as soon as I saw that actor, I don't know who he is, and he doesn't have a character name on IMDb. I think it's just like other prisoner. I was like, oh right, the way he's smiling, he's gonna kill him. Like that's obviously where they're going with this. But again, the movie's not interested in him as a character. He's just there to like have you be like, I guess yeah, he's gonna do something to the Joker.
So I believe it's Jacob Loveland and it's Ricky Malini.
No, Ricky Malini's the guy that dies after singing "When the Saints Come In" with the marshmallow. Yeah, that's
Oh,
Ricky.
right. He's the guy that gets choked out by the prison
Yeah,
guards. Okay, yeah, okay. Um, okay, that's fair. Yeah, you're right. I don't know who he is.
mhm.
But at the same time, I'm like, okay, maybe that's their way of being like, this Joker inspired the true Joker. In which case, I'm like, I don't like that. Are they trying to be like, this is the origin story of the Heath Ledger Joker? Don't like that at all.
No, they're not saying that. I'm
I,
telling you
I
right now, they
really
just don't care.
genuinely
Yeah,
hope it's not.
it's Connor's story. He's young inmate. That's just what they call him.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
which case I'm like, okay, that's a smart little layup to be like, and here's how the real Joker is done. But it's just like, well, then why make us care about Arthur Fleck?
but this is what I'm saying. It doesn't matter at all because that's not what Todd Phillips cares about. Todd
True.
Phillips wanted to make his Scorsese movie and was like, "This is how they'll let me do it if I say it's Joker."
So genuinely, it felt like to me, I'm like, and you're gonna know this better than I would. Does Todd Phillips have beef with Scorsese and respect him at the same time? Because it feels like this. It's like, hey, Scorsese, you don't like superhero movies. You don't like comic book movies. So I'm going to take your movies and turn it into something that is highly divisive, piss you off, and poorly executed to be like, screw you, Scorsese. You should have signed my autograph when I waited in the rain or something like
I
to that
think
degree. I don't know what the relationship
no,
is. It
because
just feels weird.
Scorsese was supposed to produce the first Joker, so maybe he
Oh,
feels a
okay.
way after the fact of like
Sure. Okay.
you didn't. Because I think Scorsese's response to "Did you see the Joker?" was like, "Ah, yes, I watched a bit of it. I get what they were trying to do," and then was dismissive. I don't know if Todd Phillips is in the like space in his life where he would feel the need to retaliate
I'm like,
in
is this a
that way,
diss track?
but I just feel like this movie was like, yeah, this judge looks like Scorsese. I knew it wasn't him, obviously, but like, that's something that he's like. It's a visual that means something that's not ever really going to be explored. It doesn't really need to in the thing of this movie, but it's just there.
Mhm.
But I do think, yeah, like Todd Phillips doesn't like superhero movies, so it doesn't like it's. I know you weren't saying that's what it was tied to, but it was
Right.
just like I think if you both disrespect or don't have any affinity for it, then I don't know that he would be like, and then I'm going to make a superhero movie to make fun of you. I think he would have just made a straight to Netflix comedy that shit on uh, Scorsese if that was the case.
Right.
I think, or I believe that what he said was true, which is I wasn't going to be able to make the movie I wanted to unless I tied it to these stupid comic book characters.
Fair. Sure.
And then, as you said, he probably was like not getting anything else greenlit, and then I was like, "Fine, I'll fucking do that sequel."
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, here we go. Now let's kill him, and now I never have to deal with this again. Which is
Yeah.
why I don't think that that guy who kills him becoming Joker later means anything or matters. And like I don't feel any way about it. I just like I think the important thing is Todd Phillips is free to not have to do this anymore.
Yeah, I just feel confused by it. I'm like, why would you do this? And then like, okay, give us all these indications that you care about the Joker character in the sense where it's like, and here's the real Joker, someone you don't know the actual name to, the actual identity.
And
The
wasn't even
backstory
like
is that it's a senseless killing and all this kind of stuff, and he scars himself. It's like, hey, remember
and
the
you don't
visual
get to
thing that
see
you
it.
like, and you don't get to see it. And I'm like, I'm fine with that, but it's because it just does focus on the fact that hey, look, Arthur Fleck's dead. I'm not doing a three. I'm just
Hmm.
not doing it. I'm like, that's the only thing it really serves to me. I'm like, but why do that in the background? I don't understand. He could have made it so it's just like, oh, the prison guards killed him, and to me, it would have had a more satisfying ending at that
But
point.
yeah, I mean, yes, you're right. The idea is the prison guards kill him because
Yeah,
doing it this way makes it seem like you at all care about the actual comic book universe,
yeah.
which he doesn't. So
He doesn't, and I'm just like, okay,
so
for someone that doesn't care, you really did do like, okay, well, here's Wayne Tower, here's Harvey Dent, here's, and I'm not sure, like, at any given point in time was like, were any of the other inmates supposed to be like Calendar Man or something like that? You know what I
I
mean?
don't
It's
know, but
just like,
one of them was called Kane. Isn't that like a Batwoman character? Like I feel like
I don't know.
oh
I'm
Bob
not,
Kane.
yeah.
Never. Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
depends on how they spelled her last name.
Yeah, I don't know
Let's
if that
find
was
out.
more like, hey, this is a Bob Kane reference
There
to,
is like
yeah,
Cassandra Kane and stuff. I just don't know how they
right.
spelt her last name.
Hmm.
Uh, it's Bob Kane. It's definitely that's it's Kane and
Yeah. And
the
that's
comic
Deborah
book
Kane,
character
right? That you're
yeah,
talking about? Yeah.
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 Okay, so that was just a Bob Kane reference. Again, I don't think that's his decision. I think someone was like, just do it. Just
Yeah.
make her Kane.
Yeah. And like, it was probably like one of the writers caring a lot more about comic books than Todd Phillips did, being like, I'm going to slide this in. And his best response is, I don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's nothing about this movie that makes me feel like he cares about Joker or Gotham.
Mhm.
To the point, as you said, they're starting to be like,
It's New York.
it's New York, and it's like, but
Why? I
you
don't.
just set Gotham as New York, like or New York as Gotham. So
Yeah.
like,
They
what does
didn't
New
need
York
to.
look like if this is not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just
Anyway,
didn't need to do that at all. Like I they just didn't need to do. I'm like, why did they just break the immersion? I don't like it.
no, I feel for you on that because I
Hmm.
think it you went into this with the right attitude of like I just want to enjoy a good movie, whereas I went into it like this is gonna suck. So like when stuff like that happened, I was just like, yeah,
I
this is
definitely
the level of care I expected.
Yeah, I definitely entered this a lot more optimistic
Yeah.
and hopeful, and I left very confused and now a lot more certain how I feel about it, which is still confused but appreciative of certain things. Like you
Hmm.
said, the aesthetic, all that kind of like that is good.
I think everything to do with Gary Puddles is great.
Yes. Puddles is by far that is the best scene in the
Yeah.
entire movie. He's such a good actor in that
Hmm.
whole
He
oh
holds your
man, everything is
attention. He
good.
commands the screen like it's really good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's the most I like Joaquin Phoenix in the movie. Like when he's like
Yeah.
doing his bits, and I'm like, yeah, good. Like do this more.
Yeah,
And
the
I don't
Southern
mean do
lawyer
it the
thing,
whole movie.
right?
I do think it's important that you see the difference. And I
Yeah.
guess I just really got caught up on the idea of like, yeah, you got to prove there's a difference between the
Hmm.
two, and so that's why I was like, yeah, it's good to see him go into Joker mode and then
Hmm.
go back into Arthur Fleck. But the movie's like, no.
Yeah. That part was great. I will say, um, I'm glad that there's not going to be a second one with
Or a third
Arthur
one.
Fleck because of the fact of, and it was very, very effective, but Joaquin Phoenix's body and how he start again this time, I'm like, oh my God. It's like, I'm
Yeah, the
afraid
first
for
scene
your
where they
health.
have to empty out their pots. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm afraid for
you
your
can tell in
health, man.
certain scenes where they're just focusing on his face, he put the weight back on.
Yes.
But yeah,
It
it's
was
too
just
much.
it's too much. I'm like, what? It's actually disturbing to me. It's so disturbing. And
Yeah,
I'm like, that's how much he cares about it. He committed. The actors committed. They cared about this thing, but it's just not.
he just doesn't feel as locked in as the first movie.
I mean, that's fair.
Maybe, and I think I don't say that to say he doesn't care. As I said, I don't think there's a bad performance in the movie.
Right. It's well acted. Like
Yeah,
100%. It's well
It's
acted.
just again in service to what? Like,
yes.
not
What's it
really,
trying to do?
Yeah. So I think he's definitely good in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just even in his performance, whatever he was tracking didn't really make sense to me. Like I didn't really see the story he was trying to thread with how the performance plays out, given what the movie wants you to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, is Arthur different from the Joker? That seems way too muddled, even from his performance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's oh boy. Well, I mean, I can respect a lot about this movie, but at the end of the day, is it a good movie? I can't say that it is.
Also, they didn't even do the stair step, like the stairs kick thing.
Who cares? I don't care about
I
that.
care.
Really?
I was like, don't put stuff in this. Don't in a movie where I already thought you didn't have enough. Don't put stuff in the trailer that's not going to be in the movie. I know that's not the director's fault most times. Most directors don't have control over that.
Sure.
In this day and age, most directors is like, oh, well, you put that in the trailer, but I cut that a while ago, and then the studio's like, too bad.
Oh, okay. That's fair. I just
I don't even know where it would fit based on how this. I guess it must have been a song.
Well,
it must have been
maybe, and this is what I thought was gonna happen was like, and this is kind of what happened when Harley like set the piano on fire. I should stop saying Harley. It's just Lee. When
she is
when
Harleen Quinzel, it's even more confusing because the name's Harleen, not Harley Quinzel. So you're like, what's the Lee for? Unless you're assuming Harley.
Does she introduce herself as Harley?
She never calls herself Harleen. She's always saying she
says Lee, right?
When it's in the newspaper, you see Harleen Quinzel.
Oh, okay. I get it. Ugh. Yikes. This is just.
Sorry, you were saying when she sets the piano on fire?
I'm like, okay, this is like the stuff that I thought we were gonna get is like a prison break or some sort of break from the courtroom stuff. And like it's just like again, edgelord is perfect. Just edges the entire time. It's like, no, he's back in prison and he's gonna die here. It's so
I see where you're going with it. No, edgelord is when you say things to be provocative and like and be like, "Whoa, that's just who I am." It's just a provocateur.
I definitely am missing.
I know where you're going with edgelord.
Yeah, I'm thinking something very, very different with edgelord.
No,
sure.
edgelord is like his movie, like his comedies, like Old School, Road Trip, like Due Date, like where you're, and it sounds like I'm saying that as a negative, and I think people should grow out of being edgelord, but I did find that stuff funny back in the day. I grew out of it, but I did think it was funny back in the day. But I was confronted with the idea of like, I guess this is what happens when that guy strips the jokes out of his shit. You're just left with this. But yeah, even you bringing up the fire thing, I'm like, okay, so if I, with the knowledge I have at the end of the movie, assume she's just in this to get a rise out of Joker, that doesn't even work because he's just like, oh hey, like, did you do this? I guess you are crazy. Like, it's not like she worked him up and he did something crazy.
Yeah,
I was just like, oh, so like again, what the fuck is she trying to do?
I legit thought she was trying to get him to go on a killing spree and like do revenge on someone.
Yeah, but it's like what?
But
who does
none
she
of
need to
that
get revenge on? She's just a rich person that lives with her parents and doesn't have apparently a care in the world.
Yeah,
which makes her ripping that TV out of thing very weird.
It's
I'm like, oh, well,
peculiar.
I guess she needs that because she doesn't have any money. But it's like, no, she doesn't need that. That was just a thing to put in the trailer so you could be like, oh yeah, like I get where she's coming from.
I could still see it being like, okay, she's grabbing the TV that she saw this thing on as a token or a memento.
All the TV,
but it doesn't
making
make
the discretion
sense.
Makes sense. Like her just smashing things because that's what she wants to do. But the way, again, it's in the performance, right? The way she's holding on to the TV, it makes it seem like that's important that she did that for the TV when no, she doesn't need that at all.
Yeah, she just wants like a token of the memory, and I'm like, no, it's in your brain already.
Yeah, that's
Unless
I don't know.
you don't have psychosis issues and all that kind of stuff. But the movie's not interested in exploring that. It's
No,
just like, no,
you don't
you're
know
here
where
voluntarily.
what's real about Leo and what's not.
Yeah, and it's just, you're here voluntarily. I'm like, okay, what are they trying to do here? Are they trying to do like the whole what's that movie where Nicholson's in where he gets smothered at the very end to kill him. I
Oh,
can't
To Kill a
remember.
Mockingbird.
Yeah,
No, sorry, you're talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
One Flew. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, are they trying? Because like I kind of got those vibes halfway through this, and then I'm just like, but no, that's not what they're doing here. What's happening?
Yeah,
And the
I
fact that she does that while still wearing the makeup and cutting the hair and all that, I'm like, so are you saying that you're trying to be more Joker than he is? Like, what's going on there?
yeah, I don't think there's, and I'm not saying you should stop asking. That's not what I'm trying to do. It's
Mhm.
just me coming to the realization that like all these questions that I think we both have are in vain because it doesn't matter to the people who made it.
That is the best way to say it. It
I
is in
don't think
vain.
it matters to the people who made this movie.
Yeah, because I'm never going to get an answer out of that.
Yeah,
This is a movie I've already turned. I'm not going to watch this again to try to figure out and analyze again. It's just going to be like it just to me does not hold any water aside from the fact that someone really cared about how it looks.
yeah.
They didn't care about the whole musical thing, which really bothered me because it's just like at no point do they actually have that whole shared psychosis kind of thing that even the title is saying.
Yeah, I feel like again, the We're Gonna Build a Mountain felt like that, and I thought
Yes.
the only time even though I don't like his singing, the only time I was like, oh, this makes sense is when he's singing on the phone to her.
Yep.
To get her to, and I'm like, this is like how you use music in a musical. Like the emotions
Mm-hmm.
are so big that this is how he can express it. But then the movie was like, no, he's legitimately singing that on the phone. This is not a musical moment in that respect. He's
Yep.
just genuinely singing, and she can hear it. And I'm like, oh, all right. Well, then I guess we're not doing a musical. Just because they're singing in a movie doesn't make it a musical.
I 100% agree. It's just like there's moments where it's like, yes, we're gonna do it. No, hold back, pulled
Yeah.
back entirely. It's just like we're gonna use music, and I'm like, I don't think you know what a musical is because this is just
Like I
halfway
feel like
there.
he's seen musicals, but I do
Yes.
agree with you that I don't think he understands uh, the storytelling reasons for the musical
Yes.
numbers in
Yeah.
those things, and maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he's like, look, I got you there with the visuals. Shut the fuck up.
Because again, the visuals are fantastic.
Yeah.
They're really, really good, and it's just the whole movie's. But why?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I feel. It was just like, so what? Yeah, and it came down to the two things: he doesn't want to make this, and he didn't have enough enough material for
Mhm.
the length of the movie.
Sure.
And so then that leaves the viewer to be like, what? Why is this happening? Why did that happen?
Yeah. He definitely just wanted to make us feel a lot of intense emotions
Like the first
and
one, which
confuse
I
us.
think is what works about the first one, is you feel
Yep.
those intense emotions. But as you said, a lot of it is just them recycling that here with
Mhm.
seeing him get beat up when you're like, don't do that to him. He's not well.
Yeah, and the idea of like, oh, like the fact that this isn't moving anything forward, it's just an epilogue to me. I'm like halfway through, I'm like, they're really not gonna push the story any further than
Yeah.
this trial. This is silly.
Yeah.
This is very, very silly. Because like at the point of like when they're delivering the verdict and he's actually breaking down, I'm like, okay, yeah, he isn't Joker. Like, because this is, I guess, the evidence against it, right? Because when he's Joker in the first one, he's very, very much like, I've stopped doing the laughing response thing and very much have this cool, calm, collected thing. And even like what they're showing you here is like, oh yeah, he's really not the Joker. I
Yeah.
get why Harley is like, I'm out of here, dude. I don't like this anymore. You're not who I
Yeah.
thought you
mean,
were.
it's just I don't know why she liked it in the first place.
That's the biggest issue too. And it's just like, what? Why were you even attracted? What did you want from him? Like,
I think
aside
my
from
issue is if I'm to believe that she was able to play into all of those things, like you said, and I don't think you're wrong about that, then she would be smart enough to also know he's not really that thing she built up in her head.
Yep.
And if she doesn't, then
And
it's a hard buy-in for me to be like, when he comes to you saying, oh, well, I'll just do whatever you want, that she would be like, no. If she really thought like, oh no, I just like his style, because you would then be like, all right, well then I can make this work if he's still willing to do stuff. Like it's a hard sell for me to be like, oh, I guess she just, that one thing made her be like, no, I'm not into it anymore. Like it doesn't work either way for me. Like if she's smart enough to know that this is how I play him, then you already know that he's not who you say you think he is.
Yep.
And then you would also know that you can keep it going as long as you want.
Yep.
As long as he's not literally on trial for his life.
And like, and there was a point during the rejection that I'm like, oh, was she responsible for the car bomb? Because she like doesn't, because he's not the person she thought she was, so she's gonna kill him and all that kind of stuff. Like, is she more Joker than Joker? Is she more random chaos? But nope, that didn't happen. She's just straight up gonna leave.
Than Joker, but again, the movie doesn't care.
You're right about that.
The movie's not like, oh, okay, so I guess we should focus on these elements of Harley. It's just like, yeah, whatever, man. She's here. She's Lady Gaga.
Yeah, we got a really good singer here, and then we're not really gonna showcase that at all. So,
all right,
we gotta rate this thing.
Do you want to say anything else?
Nothing that would make sense.
Okay. Then let's rate this movie. I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I don't
5.
think. Yeah. I think that the visuals and the scenes I talked about, I keep going back to the mountain and the Gary Puddle stuff, make it more than just a failing grade. But there's a lot going against it, I feel.
I'm right there with you. I think there's too much care and attention by the people that actually care about this movie. Joaquin Phoenix and the acting it's all really, really good. However, the movie itself isn't. So it's just like, I can't give it anything higher than the minimum of a pass, but it's something that is still very, very much like, it's not a good movie because it just betrays itself and it betrays the predecessor.
Yeah.
So
that's unfortunate. Well, hopefully people listening liked it more than we did, and support Todd Phillips' film career by going out to see it so he can make other movies. Will not be me. But anyway, thanks for listening. We are at TDS Spoiled on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. We have a YouTube channel at TDS Spoiled on YouTube as well. And if you want to subscribe, share, follow, do all that stuff, then you can do that on most podcast platforms. I bet we're on all of the ones you can think of. I bet you can't think of one we're not on. And then, just hit up tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten if you want a reminder on all the different ways to get in touch with us and listen to all the older episodes. All right, then. Bye-bye.
Cheers!
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.